On this channel, I have made only 2 videos on the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, and one of which was one of my first ever videos, and the other was the biggest video I've ever uploaded. That doesn't mean I won't be topped, but I digress. With that out of the way, I uploaded that video 3 months from today, and that is quite a while. So I thought it would be the perfect time to kick off this month by having a Sonic video to come out first. In this video, I will be ranking every single classic Sonic Final Zone. My opinions on them have changed over the course of 3 months, and I now have a solid grasp on how I feel towards them. I will be pulling from the original Sonic, Sonic CD, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, Sonic & Knuckles, Sonic Mania, and yes, finally Sonic Superstars. In my big ranking video, I left that one out, and I'm also separating Sonic 3 and Knuckles for this video specifically. Feel free to use the timestamps below to pivot around to your favorite zones, as they'll be going in order as they are listed. Also, make sure to answer the pinned comment below, and without further ado, let's get into the first zone. The first zone I'm going to be talking about is the Scrap Brain Zone for Sonic the Hedgehog 1 on the Genesis. If you are unaware, this is the final stage in the game. And I'm not including Final Zone as it's just the final boss and it would make the video very uninteresting if I decided to use that one instead of Scrap Brain. To start with things I really like about this zone, I think the imagery in the first act is really nice. We're used to seeing Sonic in these very vibrant and mostly natural settings, but seeing him in a huge factory emitting toxins and in the skies, it's something we get to see a whole lot. Act 2 switches things up by being inside the factory instead of outside, which adds a hint of suspense and build as we venture further into the heavy machinery. And Act 3, well, we don't really talk about Act 3. Act 3 is just a white and purple retexture of Labyrinth Zone's assets because the people working on the game apparently didn't have enough time to make new ones. Another positive is the unique music added to the stage. And while it's not the most memorable or catchy tune in the game, it still has that Sonic 1 charm I like so much. And as for the negatives, well, there are quite a few of those. First of all, the badniks in the stage are pretty darn annoying. Whether it's these pig guys or the dumb things that blow up in your way, I don't think any of these guys I like. I also think they bring back the Caterpillar Badnik from Marble Zone, and that could only mean bad things are coming. Aside from the badniks, the atrocious Labyrinth Zone Act 4 really drags this whole thing down for me. Not only because it's lazy, but because it feels tacked on, when we could have at least had a much better act inside deeper parts of the factory. But I guess they did this for story reasons. Some of the gimmicks in the zone can feel a little too unforgiving, and it's not really that hard in the first place. Kind of a lackluster final zone if you ask me. All of that aside, I think this zone is going at the top of the list, right in front of nothing. Well, why not change that by going into the next zone? Similar to how I got rid of Final Zone and opted for Scrap Brain, I'm not going to be counting Death Egg or Ring Fortress. Death Egg because it's a final boss, and Wing Fortress because it only has one act. Some of you might disagree and say I should be going Wing Fortress, but if you want to hear me yap about that one, then just watch my big ranking video. Anyways, I feel Metropolis Zone usually gets a bit of a bad reputation. Everyone talks about how much they hate the badniks, the spikes, the length, and how there's a random third act at the end when there shouldn't be. But I'm not going to pretend like I'm not one of those people, but I do understand that all I did the last time I talked about it was a gesture towards those negative aspects. So to save you some time, I'm going to be a bit more niche and try to be more positive with this one. Yes, all the downsides will still affect the overall score, but for the sake of you guys, I'm gonna make things a little less redundant. First off, I absolutely love the aesthetic this zone has to offer, with its hardcore machinery really making its presence memorable in the game. I like some of the gimmicks and how there are still plenty of ways for you to go fast in the zone, even though the best parts of it seem to drag things into a grinding halt. I know I said I would be positive, but I just can't anymore. I'd rather play Scrap Brain's awful third act than play this level, mainly because it's just a shorter experience. Metropolis is way too long, under the previous. Next up is Metallic Madness from Sonic CD, and I feel like this is easily the best one so far. I understand completely that I was a bit harsh the last time I talked about it. If you want to know what I said, go watch the video, but I'll state it here anyway. Basically, I said it was good, but way too long, used spikes too much as a punishment, and had a very lackluster boss fight to conclude the game. And I still stand by all those points I made, but I do think I didn't highlight the fantasticness that is the soundtrack you get to listen to while playing it. I also really enjoy the the atmosphere created here. Here, we get to see an area that kind of reminds me of Scrap Brain, but this time with a nice new coat of dark green paint. I really like the metal levels in Sonic. I think I still prefer Stardust Speedway over this one, as it is the most compared to level when discussing which zone is best in Sonic CD. I also like how the time travel aspect is used here, even though in my Sonic CD video, I said I wasn't too fond of how the gimmick was handled in the game. Overall, Metallic Madness is a pretty great level, and without it, we probably wouldn't have gotten the one from Mania, which is much better. But this version stand on its own too, I guess. Definitely the best final zone as of now, top of the list. Launch Base Zone is the final zone of the first half of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Now, I didn't include this game as two separate games to lengthen up the video. I definitely did not do that. What are you even talking about? What? But I did it more so because I like both Launch Base and the next zone I'm going to talk about. So I decided to include them both in this video. Just be happy you get to get more content. Anyways, Launch Base takes place in a wide open, launch base used by Eggman to power the Death Egg. He plans to launch it into space, which I'll dive into later in the video. I really enjoyed this atmosphere of the level, and the stage design is still challenging, but always making sure you're going fast, which is the perfect blend for a Sonic stage. The best thing I could say about this zone is that it's just pure fun, and there's no way it could be any more fun. Without challenge and speed, it's nothing, but the cool area it takes place in already gives off high energy. And I must say, the cutscenes used to develop the story further was a really cool way of making things feel more involved. Unlike previous levels that just felt like mindless meandering in other games, now each zone develops the story. That might just be because of a higher budget and because the story has to at least get a little more interesting than just Blue Rat must collect shiny gems. Whenever I get the chance, replaying the stage is always a must go. It's like having a usual at a restaurant. I just have to play it every time. And of course, each new time gives you a different experience due to the zone's clever layout. I personally would say this is going at the top of the list for now, above Metallic Madness. Some of you might disagree that I put it above, but you have to admit, it's not all a hot take. Now wait, in your big video ranking every classic Sonic zone ever, you included Doomsday Zone as an actual zone. So why is the Death Egg Zone sitting in this video? Remember when I said I wasn't going to do it if the level was used as a boss battle? Well, sorry pal, but words go through till the end of time. I don't know who even says that, but whatever, you don't care, let's just move on. The Death Egg Zone is such a confusing zone to me. I know that a lot of people like it, me included, but I never understood any time someone would call it the best final zone, or say that it's amazing. And yeah, I just said I agree it's good, but I don't think it's good enough to be called amazing, especially if it's in this video where I just have to talk about critiques. The first thing I don't like is the upside down gravity mechanic this zone introduces to the player. It's not too hard and it's not a skill issue on my end, but I feel as if though it isn't introduced in a good enough way to make the player to get used to the controls, and I would get why they'd not do that. The whole point is for you to replay the level over and over again until you beat it by getting better each go around. That's simple game 101 for you. But I don't know, I just always feel a little surprised whenever I run into these sections. But the second act can be a real struggle to get through. Again, not because it's hard, but because I feel mentally tired just trying to slog through it all. I don't know for sure or not, but my first hot take might be that I'm not all that into the upside down mechanics. I know I already said that, but it's just the main takeaway from this zone. Some other things include this long flashbang light things that you go around, random spikes and enemy placement, and how the boss at the end takes way too long to defeat. The whole thing just feels tedious, but on the plus side, the first act is very fun, and the music and visuals are great. Those good things alone already outweigh the bad things, but I still can't overlook them as tiny nitpicks. I would put this zone above Metallic Madness. I would still rather play Death Egg than that one, because at least there's no time traveling mechanics. Titanic Monarch Zone is from Sonic Mania, it being one of the 4 original levels in that game. Personally, I feel like Titanic Monarch takes inspiration from almost every final zone I've discussed so far. It even brings back old badniks from Scrap Brain Zone, like these little pig bomber guys. And the scale of this one is insane. Instead of your usual Eggman factory or space station, the Monarch is a huge, well, monarch. It almost reminds me of a cathedral and a boat mixed together. The zone completely takes care of the problem I've had with previous zones. That problem was that they used too many spikes, bad enemy placement, and annoying endless pits. However, in Titanic Monarch, there's a little to none of that seen, since everything flows so well on its own. The music is once again a bop, no complaints there, and I like how Act 2 lets us see the powers of the Phantom Ruby once more. This entire zone is already really challenging, but once you get the hang of it, it can feel amazing to pull off after many tries. The Act 2 boss is a little underwhelming, but cool nonetheless. Titanic Monarch is going at the top of the ranking and is probably going to stay there for the remainder of this video. Now it's time to move on to our final zone. Egg Fortress Zone from Sonic Superstars is probably the most bland and uninspired final zone for any classic Sonic game I've ever played. I didn't include Sonic Superstars in my big ranking video, so this will be the first and probably the only time I'll be talking about this one. But trust me, I'll keep it brief. Egg Fortress is kind of annoying to play through, as the second act has you going through the entire thing backwards, and in slow motion. It's an idea that sounds cool on paper, but is not fun in the slightest when actually playing the level. I hate it to death. The boss is awful too. It takes forever to beat it, and it's not even that entertaining of an attack cycle. It feels like the most basic battle I've ever played. I know I'm being negative now, but trust me, it gets worse. First of all, the audio mixing is horrible. Now I know this sounds like a small nitpick and I should just move on, but it really does take you out of it and what's supposed to be the climax. Everything sounds so crunchy, and sometimes things are too loud while the music is too quiet. Not that the music is that good or anything, but it's still annoying. This stage doesn't do much either as a zone on its own. Its scenery is something we've already seen before, done much better in other Sonic games. The final level is supposed to test you on everything you've learned so far in the previous levels, but I don't feel any of that here. Making the level longer doesn't make things more enjoyable. I still think Golden Capital, another zone from this game, is still better than Egg Fortress, honestly. At least that one had neat visuals and not bad ones. I can't talk about this one anymore, it's wearing me out. Egg Fortress is probably going to go at the bottom of the list. Yes, under Scrap Brain Zone, I really rather would play the third act than this thing any day of the week. And that concludes all the final zones in every classic Sonic game ever. Although it depends on what you classify as a classic game, I guess. But I digress. Time for the overall ranking, starting with the one in last place. Number 7, Egg Fortress. Number 6, Metropolis Zone. Number 5, Scrap Brain. Number 4, Death Egg. Number 3, Metallic Madness. Number 2, Launch Base. And number 1, Titanic Monarch. Who would have guessed? Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I wanted to make this one only because I felt like I was too harsh on some of these, and I really wanted to take the time to dissect how I really felt about each of these final zones. And also because I feel bad that I left out Sonic Superstars, although that was probably for the better. Let me know down in the comments if you want me to rank every starter zone in any classic Sonic game. I will gladly do that. And with that out of the way, there's not much else to say.